Hey everyone, my name is David Dunbar, or the theme park evangelist. A little darker on this portion of the room, but at least there's still lighting in here. So I just looked at my laptop to see exactly what chapter I'm on, which I believe it said 8. So this chapter is titled Disney Cashiers Have It Tough, but All for the Best in the End. So I completely forgot. Sorry, there's hair right here. Ugh. Yeah, I completely forgot that I have a chapter completely dedicated towards how Disney cashiers have it really tough, but how it's really rewarding in the long run, especially considering it's helped me out a lot as a Meyer cashier. So I kind of will lead it up to that point. But I also really wanted to talk about how it's really rewarding just working in kind of a merchant or any kind of cashier sale at Disney and all the pros about it. There are some negatives, but they're not that horrible. So, first, I'm going to mention the fact that when. Sorry, I cannot find a good place to put my phone. All right, good. Found a place. So when I first got hired at Hollywood Studios back about 3 years ago in June, of course, I didn't realize I was not just going to become a cashier. I was also going to be working in the kitchen. I was going to be working counter. And cashier was definitely the position I did the most. I also had to wash dishes and collect trays from the guest area. So that's all fun stuff that you get to do as a food and beverage kind of person. Of course, if you're in merchandise, you could either be working on the sales floor as a Disney cashier, or you could be stocking the shelves. You could also be working in the back and never see guests ever. So it's some of those fun things that you get to do, and it's all cool here and there. And as I am working as a Disney cashier, I met all kinds of different people from all over the world. And I didn't realize at the time how this was going to benefit me in the future. And I say that because here in Cincinnati, we have a lot of people from all over the world traveling to work. And I'm surprised how many internationalists there are here. And of course, Disney, it happens all the time. Even at Hollywood Studios, surprisingly, which 3 years ago, it was a dead park. There was nothing to do there. I would never say the same thing now, of course. I mean, Hollywood Studios is now like the most uh, exciting park to go to, it seems like, I guess you could put it. But even still, I'm, working at Hollywood Studios about summer of 2017, and I saw IDs from all over the world. I've seen passports, and you have to really be very observant about where the date of birth is. I always had to keep in my mind not just when I ID'd people, but also how many alcoholic beverages I could sell to people. So, of course, the maximum amount of alcoholic beverages at the time when I first started working at Disney, it might have changed by now, but 3 years ago it was two per person. And I made the mistake of accidentally selling six alcoholic beverages to two guests. So all I got was a coaching and counseling, which is not bad. It does go on your record, but it's not bad enough that it's going to make you look really, really bad. And obviously, this kind of stuff doesn't haunt you for the rest of your life, just like any kind of write up you get at Disney. And those, unfortunately, as much as Disney likes to think that they haunt you, but they don't. And as far as I know, the write up I got at Publix back a few years ago, who knows whatever became of that. And honestly, that was something that wasn't even completely my fault. That was just a way for a manager to appease a customer, and that was the only way they could figure out of doing it. And I took it very hard at the time because I've never really been a big fan of being written up. And honestly, every time that something bad has happened at a job, so far it has not followed me. And I don't know how companies do it these days, but there's got to be a way for a company to know about your past work history and as far as I know. They do have a way of doing it. I just don't know it. But yeah, I'm sure Disney is one of those places that it's not really going to affect you too much what happens there, as long as it's not something too major that is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Obviously, if it's something kind of minor that happened that the company decided to blow out of proportion, which happened to me, then yeah, that's not going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Now, you molested a guest or deliberately were violent towards them, and it somehow made the news. Yeah, I think a company is going to notice that in the future. And thankfully, I've never been that kind of person. I would hope not. As a Christian, I definitely would never want to do that. So, that fun stuff. But now I'm going off topic. The point is, I learned quite a bit about cashiering skills working at Disney, and the first thing that Disney taught me how to do was count backwards. I might have mentioned it a few times in a few other vlogs, which basically is when they take your total and then they start counting. So it's like, let's say I owe you $10 and change, and I have a $5 bill and 5 ones. So I would say, here's your 5, and then 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 makes. And then I would show the for last dollar, which is a dollar bill, and this makes 10. And whenever you give out like any kind of loose change, you're just gonna dump it in that person's hand, and then you're basically gonna say, "Here is 84 cents," and then you would start the dollar bills, and then you would start counting it from. Usually, you're gonna go the lowest amount or the lowest dollar bill, and you're gonna start working your way up to the highest. Usually, that's how it works. Or you're going to that's one way you could do it, but for me personally, I find it easier if I start counting towards that amount. Like, let's say I owe you $80, so I'm gonna start sometimes even with the larger bills. Or let's say I owe you 87, so I'm gonna start with the larger bills in this sense. So I'm gonna go 20, 40, 60, 80. And then let's just just because it would be easier on me, I would give you a $5 bill. Then I would say 5 makes 85, 86, 87. And so I would have the $2 bills, and then that's how I would get to $87. And that's how I would count backwards. And that's how Disney always taught me back then. I know it sounds very confusing. And I would say the more difficult place that I had to learn to operate a cash register, and honestly, it's because of this that I've even learned how to work in noisy environments. So I first learned to work in noisy environments as a cashier when I was over at Oasis Canteen over by Indiana Jones Epic Spectacular, or Epic for short. And there was this really noisy fan that was just above my head. And I operate cash register quite a bit. And you would have these guys that come up and they don't realize how loud this thing is because it's not in their head, in your ears, it's in your ears. And they would come up and they would mumble what they wanted. And you're just like, what? Because they would come to you first. They would come to the left side of the building, which is a tiny little shack or trailer. And so you're trying to be as polite as possible, trying to get them to speak a little clearer. And they would, half the time they get really annoyed of you and go, "Why can't you hear me? I don't understand this. This is driving me crazy. Like, you should be able to hear me." It's like, well, you don't have a fan in your face, do you? You're thinking that to yourself, but at the same time, it's like, you can't be rude towards them. And then they would go to the other side, and that's where the rest of the cast members would come into play, and they would take care of everybody else. But for me, I had to learn to become really quick at what I did, because you have guests come up and they would place multiple orders, and it always shocked me when I would have families come up and place orders for like multiple funnel cakes. It's like, do you guys understand how big these funnel cakes are? It's like you're ordering funnel cakes for your children, like one per child, and I can guarantee you half of your family is going to end up throwing this out. Like they're spending 30, 40 bucks on funnel cake and root beer floats. Like sometimes I have the family come through and order ice cream because it's like, well, at least you guys are a little more logical. I'm just saying that right now. And then sometimes you would have families that just come up and order nothing but funnel cakes. And my favorite were the families that actually would come up and order the works, which is basically a funnel cake with powdered sugar or cinnamon sugar, topped with ice cream, chocolate syrup, and strawberries. Oh yeah, maybe something else, but I think that was about it. But the point is, I would see them ordering maybe 4 or 5 of these, and then they would share them amongst themselves. Like, here's one for you, one for you, one for you, one for me. And then I'm like, how are you going to eat all this? This is something I have to share with my brother. I mean, I'm sorry. I know some of you like to look at me and go, I bet you could eat that all to yourself. I'm like, no, I promise I could not. It's not going to happen. And I know TJ would say to me, oh, you could do it. And I would say, maybe if I'm really hungry, I could do it. But most of the time, no, definitely not going to happen. But that's just me. I even tried ordering one of those ice cream in a pails at Blizzard Beach that comes with a shovel, and I had a hard time eating all of that. I could eat half of it, but even that is a lot of ice cream because ice cream in a pail is a lot. But I would say that generally speaking, the easier place to operate cash register at Hollywood Studios as far as Echo Lake Food and Beverage goes was over at the Min and Bill's Dockside Diner. Now, we got a lot more internationalists over here because it was a busier location, and this was closer to 50's Primetime Cafe, and also over by the buffet over there, whatever it's called again. So I wasn't really surprised that we were a little bit busier, and also we were so close to the Chinese theater, and also all the Star Wars stuff was over there as well. So when you have all that kind of bombarded on you, and also when you're like that close to the main entrance, like yeah, you're gonna see a lot more people. So of course all the internationalists are gonna go over there, and they're gonna make your life very tough. I had to use body language and pictures to the best of my abilities, even sometimes. On the odd occasion, I had guests come up and they had no idea how to say this or that. So, back when I first started, I should clarify, we didn't have numbers for each thing. We had a bunch of different hot dogs, and I believe we had like a chili dog, we had a chili and cheese, we had a cheese, and we had a sauerkraut. I think back then we didn't even have just a plain cheese dog. I think that was kind of added on halfway through my time with Min and Bills, which is hilarious. And that's only if I can remember correctly. And guests would have to come up and go, I want that one. And they would point at it with their index finger, or pointer finger, I should say. And I would say this one, and they were like, yeah, because they had a hard time saying it or pronouncing it, because I can guarantee you, whenever we had people that spoke pure Spanish, they had no idea how to pronounce a lot of the stuff. It was like, okay. And I could understand a little bit better whenever I was at Min and Bill's. I can also guarantee you, I was surprised how many people actually wanted ice in their drinks. I'm one of those people that actually doesn't like a lot of ice with my drinks, but most of the people that came through when they bought soda, they wanted ice with their drinks. And whenever I told them about the kids' meals, a lot of them were like, what? I didn't know I had all these sides to go with my meal. Oh, that was cool. I like that. I was like, I do too. And I was being serious about it. I really liked the fact that you could get all the sides. And, you got the odd occasional young family or young couple that would come through and they would just want alcohol. And this usually happened the most when we were slow. So when it was busy, it was more like people ordering bunches of food and drinks. like normal soft drinks. I know I was saying bunches of food that didn't really make a lot of sense, but you know how that is. But when we were slower, people were coming up and they were just ordering ice cream. They were ordering alcoholic drinks, the specialty alcoholic drinks that we have, and then just kind of chilling out somewhere. And that was about all I saw of them. And then sometimes, on the very odd occasion, you would actually see someone ordering a meal in the middle of the afternoon, which was very interesting. So I would recommend, if you ever wanted a quick service meal at a Disney theme park and you didn't want to deal with that rush, come mid morning. Well, we were opened at 11, so you didn't really have a choice with us, but normally I would recommend mid morning, or you could also come mid afternoon. No, of course, Min and Bill's was open on weekends early in the morning, so you could come mid morning then. I don't know if Min and Bill's actually opens earlier all the time now that the park is doing so well now, so it's hard to say with that place. But during the weekdays, it was the kind of place that if you came maybe between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, you were easily able to get in and out of the restaurant within like 2 minutes. And people weren't forced to wait around, because I had a lot of people complain to me, I've been waiting for my food for like 10 minutes. This is ridiculous. And you have to get the manager up there, and the manager had to apologize to everybody because, I could only do so much as a cashier to get their food through. And half the time, I didn't know what was going on back there. I'm like, why is it taking so long for them to get their food? I'm just placing orders. And then you have this guest come and tap you on the back, and on your back, I should say. And it was I've been waiting for my food for 10 to 15 minutes. Like, what is going on here? And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I did submit it. Like, I can't really say that it wasn't completely my fault. Like, there was the odd occasion where it was an electronic error. But I know that I always submitted the order whenever I pressed the pay button or whatnot. It was definitely something that was not on me. There was one time that I tried to make a magical moment, and I did it the wrong way, so I was surprised I did not get in trouble for this. I had this guest come through one night, and I'm running register, of course, because that's pretty much all I'm basing this story off of. And he just ordered a hot dog. That's all he wanted. And I felt bad for him. I really did. He had no money. And here's something you probably did not know about Disney. Disney has the ability to give you free food on the odd occasion. And this is completely up to Disney discretion. This is like, you can try to beg and play them all you want, but it has to be their decision in the long run. Even so, sometimes Disney likes to just do magical moments. And Hollywood Studios was the park I knew the best that did this all of the time, where they would just spontaneously just start giving out free food. Like, sometimes they would send me outside with a tray of free ice cream when we had nothing else to do. And within 30 seconds, all the ice cream would be gone. It's like, where'd all the ice cream go? I just spent 5 minutes working on it. It's all gone now. But this was one of my favorite magical moments working at Hollywood Studios. And even though the managers weren't very impressed with me for using my own money to make this guest happy, I did at least find out that I could have gone another way about it, where the company basically would have paid for his meal and it would have cost me anything. But you live and you learn, and I'm really glad that I know that now. But in the long run, I'm just happy that I made a guest happy, and that to me is a very magical thing. And that was by far, as I said already, my favorite magical moment working at Hollywood Studios. Now, obviously, I've done other magical moments working at Magic Kingdom at Tomorrowland Speedway, but that is another story for another time. So definitely be ready for the Magic Kingdom videos. So as far as what's the next chapter, the next chapter is actually going to be backstage tours at Walt Disney World. So I was working at Hollywood Studios. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. When I went on my very first backstage tour, and I also came back to Hollywood Studios for another backstage tour because I technically still had my privilege of going back there, I guess you could put it. Of Even though I technically wasn't working there anymore, I came back a few months later, and they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, I was told by so and so that I could go and do the such and such tour. I'm not saying right now because I don't want to ruin the surprise. And they're like, "But you work at Magic Kingdom now," and I'm like, "Well, I did get told." And they're like, "Well, all right, if so and so said so." And the manager did see me, and she was like, "Oh, good, you made it. I'm really glad you made it." So the first tour was at Hollywood Studios, and the second tour was at Magic Kingdom. And I almost did get to do a tour with them at Animal Kingdom, and I actually got permission from management for that one as well. Even though I had been gone from Hollywood Studios for quite some time, but it was still in that gray area where I could still get away with it. And that one would have been for Dinosaur. Unfortunately, I was really busy that day, and that's why I didn't get to go. But man, that would have been such a cool tour. I would have loved that one. Too bad it didn't happen. But stay tuned for Chapter 9. That's when I'm going to go over backstage tours at Walt Disney World. I'm going to tell you guys um, basically some stuff I might not have mentioned before in the two backstage tours. And I'm going to briefly go over the backstage tours again without going into excessive detail because you can already watch it on YouTube. And just how beneficial it was to me. Next chapter is not going to be as long because most of it's already on YouTube. I'm obviously not going to tell you every little bit of detail about the tour because I'm going to tell you right now. You want to watch it? I'm gonna have actually each video for it on the bottom right and left hand corner of the screen at the end of the video. So be watching for that. And then of course, finally, chapter 10 is the very last vlog of the Hollywood Studios series, which is working the holidays at Hollywood Studios. So I think you'll really like that. Obviously, I didn't work Christmas. I did work Thanksgiving, and you'll get to hear what that was like to work my very first holiday at Hollywood Studios and what I thought about that. Until then, I will see you guys in the next vlog. And always remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Have a great night. Peace out.